Welcome to another episode of Salsidoparanormal. Just had to make sure I was not muted. I'm your host, James Salcido, and tonight we are continuing our review of our discussion about, I'm all over the place tonight, winged humanoids. And of course, as in this previous episode here, I want to welcome my guest on with me again, a returning guest. Jen, thank you for joining the show again.
Hello, James. It's good to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, always glad to talk with you about all these topics and have everyone here listening, and whether it's live or in the podcast feeds. And this is so we've talked about so far experiences people have had with whatever these are, whatever, and it seems like there's multiple things that they are, but they're basically, people describe them in, at least the common features are these humanoid shaped kind of figures with wings of different kinds that can move around, fly or glide or whatever they do, and in some cases without moving their wings. And that's sort of what I wanted to talk about here. I guess I should mention. So I've Jen was very nice to mention to me a little while ago that she thought it'd be fun to do some shows together and kind of go back and forth with topics here and there. And so this is the first one of these first couple of these shows that we're doing in that sort of format, just because it's fun, and we always enjoy talking, and hopefully you all will enjoy these conversations. And so we figured out details just tonight, and that's why we just literally started when we did and made the announcement when I did that we were starting tonight. So, but yeah, so the other thing I wanted to bring up, Jen, about the humanoid sightings is the whole thing with Mothman in West Virginia. That wasn't the only time anything similar has been seen. There's been reports of similar things and even UFOs seen around, I believe it was in Chicago, around one of the airports there. I think it's O'Hare International Airport there. That people have had experiences in and around that area with seeing this giant winged humanoid flying around the city and the airport. And so, and this is apparently from a few years ago. So this is, and even earlier than that, but the most recent stuff that I heard, actually the second article here, this All That's Interesting article mentions 2011. So it started at that point, but I know it's gone on for years now, on and off since then. So, yeah, I don't know if you've heard about that at all, Jen, if you want to talk about that.
The Chicago incident, I mean, I'm not familiar with it. I'd like to hear a rundown of it at some point, but just the fact that people are seeing this, I think of them as a type of already existent type of being that is coming up due to human activity in some way, and then people see them. And we have such a limited scope as a society of what we're willing to accept as a possibility. And that's something it seems like it might be something kind of more of a modern idea. You know, it seems like in the past, people were much more open to the notions of these beings, or they seem to be aware of the presence of these beings, and they have stories about them. And so I always go back to that because when you do look these things up, you find current stories, but you also find these much older accounts of basically describing the same thing. And sometimes a lot of these folklores or cryptid descriptions are already present in a prior society in those regions, and that they do describe the same creature coming up again and again at certain dates, sometimes it seems to do with weather or a certain almost seasonal, and then these events begin to occur in their presence, or that they are aware that these certain events will take place. And maybe there's some sort of distant connection with them or humanity, or there was a previous connection between them. Kind of like what I was talking about in the previous episode about how crows will flock with wolves and other animals of predatorial nature. That they have a sort of collaboration that they have going on. So perhaps these certain cryptids, they do have a collaboration with humanity that's been not that that humanity as a collective in Western society has not been aware of, but was present all along. And these events, their presence precludes sort of future incoming experience. So maybe there's something like that going on.
Yeah, that's definitely. I think all this has been so much that we experience now that is thought to be just paranormal or just anything weird. It's been around, like you said, for so long, all around the world, and it just depends on who you want to, or who people want to believe or not believe about if that's true or not. But there's just much folklore and mythology about all kinds of these things that we always talk about here in these shows being around. So I do have this article here I can kind of summarize about the Chicago Mothman, as it's sort of well known now. Sightings started in 2011 throughout the Chicago area. They started reporting sightings of a giant winged humanoid flying around the city. At first, even though there was a lot of sightings overall, it was very spread out throughout time in the area. But then in 2017, these reports started coming in faster, I guess, or more. And because of the similarities to the cryptid or the being that is in or was in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, people have named this creature, whatever it is, the Chicago Mothman. And so, of course, there's no way to know if it's the same or separate or not. But it's described as a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes, and it's said to stand 6 to 10 feet tall. That does make it a little bit taller, but I do think that when people are sort of frightened by their sightings and stuff like that, maybe if they're frightened enough, then they can maybe be mistaken about some details. And I mean, 6 to 10 feet, depending on how far away it is, I could see that there being a variety of sort of estimates there. But people have reported seeing this figure flying through the air and then sometimes looking into windows and even swooping down at pedestrians or dropping onto the hoods of cars. That's some pretty close sightings there, in a way. And of course, no one. This article mentions no one knows for sure if it's the same being, but the sightings, of course, caught the attention of the sort of paranormal or cryptozoological communities, and this article goes on, but that's sort of where it all started. And then I know in recent years that's been cited around, and other things have been cited around that major airport there in Chicago as well.
Okay, so one thing that kind of stood out to me about what you were saying is the red eye shine. So I was looking it up, and there's something called the red eye reflection in certain animals and how specific that is. So it's called tapetum lucidum. It's the reflective layer of the back of the eye that improves night vision by reflecting light back through the retina. So rabbits and picas have red eye shine. Other mammals, such as I'm reading from here talking about eye shine.
Mm-hmm.
Other mammals, such as horses, have blue eye shine. The eyes of foxes, domestic cats, and dogs have a green eye shine. The cats can also have orange or red eye shine. So it's really interesting that these certain species have different types of eye shine. Even moose have a red eye shine, whereas deer or elk have white. So there's something to. I wonder if there's something to do with these cryptids and trying to understand what they are, what kind of species they are, if they're a literal physical presence being made in the physical world, of why they would be presented as having red eyeshine. I think that really stands out as far as actually truly trying to figure out what they might be, and giving some credit to that it helps with night vision, and that many of these are seen in the nighttime. So that's fascinating, I think, about the eyeshine itself.
Yeah, either in the night or as it's getting towards night or early morning. That time range seems to be common for those kinds of sightings of that kind of a being, but also just weird things in general. Not that it's exclusive, not that weird things aren't sighted in the daytime, but still, the nighttime is active with all that kind of stuff, I think. So yeah, the eye shine thing. Of course, cats would have multiple different possible colors for eye shine because they're
Right,
cats.
that's funny that's funny actually that cats can have, green eyeshine, but also red eyeshine, or orange. So that's very interesting when we've talked about cats before. But I think it would say a lot about, and I've always been interested about, the way that interacts, the way that the light is refracted, that the way that human beings see color and imagery and everything, and how much has to do with the perception of reality. But if this species of cryptid, these winged beings, if they are seen with red eyeshine, often thought of as being kind of malevolent, there's kind of nobody wants to see any type of eyeshine, but particularly red is sort of, well, it's scary, of course, but it may have something, and maybe for good reason. I mean, large cats and things like that, but if this is some type of predator or some type of, neither one or the other, maybe it's neutral, but every type of creature has a nature to itself and a purpose for why it displays the way that it does. So I do think that the eyeshine, anything we could take away from the description of these creatures, is helpful. Flight, the raptor species, possessing wings or the ability to fly in any way whatsoever is terrifying. I mean, it's something that if you were to take, there are accounts of thunderbirds and things like that, but any type of large raptor or bird of prey they possess the ability to surprise their prey, and maybe that's what lends to the fear, is the red eyeshine, the ability for flight, and then that they seem to show up during instances of human sort of shock and suffering, where lives are lost, for example, like in the case of the bridge, or other instances like that. So, but why they would be there may not be malevolent. If it was seen as a warning, there could have been, perhaps, if there was some relation to the purpose of why they may be there, perhaps it could have even prevented, or if people were more cautious or something. Perhaps there's a communication going on that people aren't paying attention to, or that we no longer pay attention to in the modern world in some way.
Yeah, definitely. It could have been. I mean, that's the thing with all these sightings is we don't know. I mean, the media and movies and TV want to always portray everything as being negative, but we really don't know. It could have been there as sort of a warning, sort of trying to point out, hey, look at this bridge. It's not in the best of shape, and they found that there. I believe I don't remember the details now, but the bridge. There are parts of the bridge that were getting worn out that should have been maybe fixed or looked into at least. But that for whatever reason, probably funding or who knows, the situation was not known to a lot of people. So yeah, that's a possibility. I did want to mention, as I did in the first episode there, these the while the Mothman of Point Pleasant was sort of made pretty well known and famous by John Keel, the sightings in Chicago, those were the people that really looked into that was a website called Phantoms and Monsters from Lon Strickler. So if you all want to go and look up those names, you can find a lot more details on all these kinds of sightings. And I can see about digging up the links as well for that and put those in the episode description because I definitely like to give credit when I can to people that have done actual research on site in some of these places and talk to these people in person, which is something I would love to be able to do more of myself. But yeah, so I do think there's always when the communication is not clear, I think it's easy for people to sort of dismiss it as maybe I'm imagining things or I don't know what that is, so I'm not going to worry about it, and it's frightening, so I'm going to get out of here. I do think fright is an understandable response to sightings of all these things, and in some cases, it definitely seems to be warranted. But also, I think it can maybe distract us from other aspects of what's going on that could be important to look into.
Yeah. Something that stands out is the bridges. There's something strange about that too. I mean, the concept of, different parts of the land. If there's a lot of mythology about the idea that I don't know why, but the concept that certain different types of these cryptids or certain spirits can't cross certain bodies of water and things like that. I don't know, like on this topic, how significant a role that could play. But the fact that the bridge was going to collapse and there was a lot of activity around it when it did with these cryptids, or anything to do with something going on with the manufacturing of structures or the moving into new territories or building a town somewhere where there was not, or developments in certain different parts of the land, that there could be some kind of significance there. Perhaps like there's something to do with if there was suddenly like the concept that people could travel from one part of land to another and now they cannot. If you look at instances of war, they will attack bridges and they will limit the space that people can travel. So there could be something to do even with at that level in some way that these creatures were. I mean, bridge mythology around cryptids is pretty prominent. The concept of something living under a bridge and the mythology about that, which seems to just be a good warning about things, but the concept that bridges and man-made structures like that, or people using human-made structures to make some kind of statement about what we are doing, and it having a two-layer effect, that it means one thing and it has a practical purpose, but it has another expression of what it is. It has another message about what humanity is trying to do. For example, building skyscrapers and things like that. But you're trying to get that it's sort of an overcoming of any type of animalistic nature, that they are above that. And so I think that there's some kind of, perhaps there could be a significance about the bridge itself, or any bridge, or any type of human structure having an effect at some level, at some point in time. Obviously not at a common point, obviously not on a constant level, but that ever so often there being some type of overlap between some realm that people are unfamiliar with, that we are all that the modern person is not familiar with, that there could be some type of communication going on there about that and the limitations of that, or between two bodies of land that may have significance that were previously connected by a bridge that no longer are, or something to that effect. But
Yeah, I think we could easily do for another time a couple of different things here we could look into is bridges, of course. I think that'd be like you said, there's a lot there, and I think that seems like it'd be a fun one to look into. Also, just the idea of underground things. I think we haven't really done that. We did a whole series on mountains, but we didn't really do anything. At least a deep dive into. That's funny. Deep dive into caves. I think we could do that at some point. That seems like it'd be a good idea as well. So, but yeah.
yeah,
So
we
and
definitely should cover
yeah,
the cave systems. That's a good idea. I'm glad we thought of that. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think that's the great thing about doing these shows is sort of finding ideas that connect along the way. But yeah, the other thing now, some of these sightings, they do not so much with the Mothman situations, but other cases, maybe with some of the Mothman sightings. I don't know for sure now. But the amazing thing is, in addition to sometimes they seem to be able to fly without moving their wings, they also seem to be able to vanish or appear from out of nowhere in some cases. And that's something I just thought of now. But again, that to me makes me wonder: is it because they are just able to rise up and move away that quickly in like a space of less than a minute, where someone looks away and looks back, and they can move that fast where they're just gone? Or do they literally, or they appear, or do they literally appear to teleport from one place to another? And that, of course, I don't know. But what do you think that would indicate? If it's, would that mean it would be would still be some kind of being that is biological, you think, or something different?
Well, I mean, I think that it's possible that it could be the fact that, okay, so the idea of a bumblebee or any type of like any type of insect like that, like a bumblebee, or they create their own sort of environment around them when they are moving through space. There's a type of interaction going on that is, it's beyond human ability. It's beyond human ability to replicate in technology previously. I mean, that's what's believed. But they are able to move through rain and everything else the same exact way they would if it wasn't raining, to some extent. I mean, they're able to maneuver through with their, their natural capabilities as an organic creature. And so it would appear sometimes that they are in one spot and then in another before you're able to even wrap your mind around it. For example, people have talked about a common housefly that you cannot. The reason there's a struggle with swatting a fly is that they say that the size of the fly has something to do with the way that time and space is perceived, and that they are moving in a sort of such a swift motion because of their size, which is odd if you were to escalate this to the size of a human being, where they're defying natural laws as we think of them. But they are able to evade being swatted with a fly swatter. They see us as moving slower in motion, so they are able to evade it. And there was an article about this I've read before that I can't post right now, but if people were to look that up, they sort of like they see the larger object moving at a slower rate of speed and they're able to evade it. So there's the option that perhaps they're able to go against the natural laws as we think of them. Another would be, yes, that perhaps they're going in and out of dimensions. And I don't think that's so hard to understand. Going in and out of dimensions makes a lot of sense. For example, if you were on the dimension of that fly, you'd be on a different dimension, so to speak. Or if you were to go to the life experience of an ant, it would be different than the way that you experience natural reality. So there could be something to that effect going on, where they are going in and out of a dimension, so to speak, where they are able to go into both. Maybe when they are
Right.
flying, moving, they are in another dimension. And then when they present themselves, they're in a concurrent dimension with a human that they're being seen by
Right.
for a moment or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I wish we could go on for the rest of the night here, but we are out of time. But we will do this again when we can, and we'll let you all know when it happens. Thank you all for listening, and thank you, Jen, for being here. And we'll talk to you next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.
Thank you, James. Have a good night.
You too.